This week we are going to cover another technique for creating a responsive layout. So far we've covered Flexbox, we've covered grid view, we've talked about mobile design as far as how to do sizing, how to handle images and all of that. And this week we're going to be covering how to use CSS Grid, which is another responsive layout. It's probably the most complicated one, but it's also pretty powerful because it has a template feature that really lets you control the layout of your page. And it adapts pretty well to mobile. So we will be covering that. You'll start with the web-based readings, which basically get you familiar with CSS Grid. And then we have our lecture demo. And we start by going through some of the simpler layouts. The template is more complicated, so that is the last CSS Grid layout that we talk about. You can lay things out by column or row, or you can use the template. So we start with the columns and rows just to kind of get you used to it. And then we get into the responsive template. As far as the textbook assignment goes, you will be converting a site into a responsive grid using CSS Grid. Specifically, the template is what we're going to be using. So you're going to download a kind of a fun Dr. Seuss page, and then you will be going through and applying or creating the CSS that is going to make it responsive. Okay, and so you'll notice that we've got some media queries in here and some changes to the layout of the template based on the size of the screen. Okay, and once you finish with the CSS, you do have to go in and modify the HTML because you have to put in the classes that we've created in this grid. That's how we connect the two. Okay, and so to help you with this, I've actually given you a screenshot of what all the code in the body section looks like, and I have highlighted, where you need to put those classes. I have also given you links that show you, if you're looking on a phone, this is what the completed page should look like. If you're looking in a tablet, this is what you're going to see. Okay. And then lastly, if you're looking on a desktop, and these are a series of screenshots. So probably noticed on the mobile one, it's not lined up perfectly because these are screenshots, but at least you have an idea of what it's going to look like. Okay. And then you're going to download this responsive page review, because at this point we have really covered 3 different techniques for making a page responsive. And so what this is going to do is it's going to give you the exact same page, and it's the media is the same. And so you'll have one named CSS Grid, one named Flexbox, one named Grid View, and then you will be adding the code for Flexbox in the Flexbox page. You'll be adding the code for CSS Grid in the CSS Grid page. And this is a review. Likewise, in the Grid View page, you'll be adding the Grid View code. So this is going to review all of 3 of those techniques, and the directions are going to walk you through how to do that. So the first one we're going to be working with is Flexbox. So you're going to open up that, and then you can see the CSS that you are going to have to add. And in these pages, the CSS is in an internal style sheet. So you're just going to be adding to the internal style sheet. And then the next task, you're going to be opening up that grid view page and making the changes for grid view. And then finally, you're going to be adding CSS grid or opening that page and adding the changes for CSS grid. Okay, so that is the assignment. And then for your lab assignment, you're going to create your own CSS grid page. Now, if you wanted to take the page that you did in the last assignment and reuse the content, that is perfectly fine. So it can really be any topic that interests you. Keep in mind that I am going to let you use this as a basis for your final project if you would like to. You could also use the page that you created using grid view as a basis for that final project. If you're looking for, a page to model after, you certainly can model after the Seuss page. And you can see I have a lot of examples here. So these are all examples that you can look at. Okay, so this is CSS grid, which means that it is going to be responsive. And if I pressed F12 and I turn on the emulator, go down to the phone level, you can actually see what it's going to look like on a phone. Okay, and then if you wanted to see the code for this, you certainly can right click and view page source. And you can see that I did do the screen and the print, which is what you're going to have for your term project. And I believe it's also asking you for screen and print in this assignment as well. Okay, and that's why this one, you can actually double dip and use it as a foundation for the term project because it has a lot of the same requirements. Well, let's see. Here is another example. This is my fun little clip one. You can see I've got a little animation going on here. And I got links. And again, this is responsive. If I went into F12, turned on my emulator, you can see that it does adjust for the different mobile sizes. Okay, and then here's another example. Instead of 3 columns, I have 2 columns. I used a little different CSS for this. So if we look, I used grid columns for this instead of a grid template. So that is where it is a little bit different. Okay, so you can see I have 2 grid columns instead of doing the template. Okay, so kind of up to you how you want to do that. But it is responsive as well. Okay, in fact, if I press F12 and turn that on, and let's go back down to a phone. You can see that it works for a phone or any other size. Okay, so just several examples for you guys to look at when you are trying to figure out, what you want to do. Now, once you are done, you are going to pick one of your responsive pages, either the one you did this week or in the previous assignment. So either your grid view or your CSS grid, and you are going to share it with your classmates. So you need a link to your page, explain who the audience is, what the purpose is, and how you decided on the design and layout, why you grouped the elements that you did, why you did the color scheme, the graphics, etc. Then you're going to review other students' posts and reply to one of them. I do have an example here, and if there aren't any for you to reply to when you come in here, you certainly can reply to mine. Okay, but you can see I actually really like my flip version here. So with the spin, this was actually kind of fun to do. So that's the one that I chose. And I went through and I answered the questions the same way that you have to. Okay, and then we also have the final project that you should be thinking about. And as I said, you can double dip either your grid view or your CSS grid exercise. The directions are in this document. And so I think it's pretty self-explanatory as far as the file structure goes and the HTML requirements, what you need for your index and print CSS. Okay, you need to link it to your assignment page. And if you want to look at a checklist, I have that as well. So this is basically the same thing as the written instructions. It's just presented to you a little bit different. This is actually what I use when I am grading. Okay, and if you go through here, you can make sure that you've got everything completed. So that is what you will be working on this week. Let me know if you run into problems or if you have any questions. I hope you guys have fun with this and have an awesome week.